It was May 14th, 1987, Game 6 of the Wales Conference Final. On paper, it looked like a normal night at the Montreal Forum. The Flyers squeaked out a 4-3 win thanks to Rick Tocchet breaking a third-period tie and Ron Hextall turning aside 29 shots on his way to an eventual Conn Smythe victory. Nothing unusual in the box score, but it's what happened before the puck even dropped that still has people talking almost 4 decades later. This is the story of the NHL line brawl with 0 penalties. One of the most bizarre fight nights ever. So what set the stage? What prompted Frank Dolson of the Philadelphia Inquirer to declare the National Hockey League sank to a new low? What made even Don Cherry admit, "I don't mind the odd brawl, but I didn't like that"? Well, it isn't hard to see what sparked this feud. After 2 grueling rounds, both teams were battle-tested. The Canadiens steamrolled the Bruins in a clean 4-game sweep, then clawed their way past their provincial rivals in a brutal 7-game war against Quebec. Meanwhile, the Flyers had muscled their way through both New York squads, the Rangers and the Islanders, grinding them down with that signature Philly edge. After a back-and-forth series, the stage was set for Game 6. The Flyers held a 3-2 edge, just 1 win away from punching their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final. With everything on the line, the atmosphere was electric. The fuse didn't just burn slowly, it blew. The tension was finally about to snap. 2 Canadiens forwards, Claude Lemieux and Shane Corson, had a pre-game ritual. After warm-ups with the teams waiting in the dressing rooms, the pair would fire pucks into the opposing team's empty net. Pretty harmless stuff. What started as a small superstition for Montreal quickly drove Philadelphia mad, however. Before long, it was no longer just superstition. It had become full-blown psychological warfare. Claude Lemieux recalls, "It was just our routine. Superstition. Corson and I like to stay out late, flip a puck in the net." Mark Howe of the Flyers put it bluntly, "The whole thing started because of their superstition." It really seemed to annoy the Flyers. Chico Resch, Philly's backup goalie, even tried countering the moves throughout the series, literally flipping the net off its pegs in Game 4 to ruin Montreal's ritual. Philly would win Game 4. So back in Philadelphia for Game 5, naturally the Canadiens flipped the net back, scored, and won 5-2. By Game 6, the superstition would turn into a standoff unlike anything hockey has ever seen. Claude Lemieux remembered Canadiens captain Bob Gainey warning him before warm-ups, "Don't mess around, just let the Flyers leave, then you can do your routine." They hid behind the curtain, waiting for the Flyers to clear, and when the coast looked clear, they stepped back onto the ice to cheers from the crowd. Dave Poulin of the Flyers recalls, "They were hiding like little kids, so our guys hid like little kids behind our curtain, and we went out there to meet them." Lemieux and Corson skated into Flyers territory, but as soon as they crossed the line, they were ambushed. In an instant, chaos erupted, and before Lemieux even knew what hit him, he was eating punches, curled up in his signature turtle position. Ed Hospiter, a Philly tough guy, was the one who grabbed Lemieux and wrestled him down. "What are we doing?" Chico Resch would yell. Lemieux agreed, saying, "Yeah, this is stupid." But before it could end, both bench doors swung wide open. Both teams flooded back onto the ice, and all hell broke loose. Chris Knuckles Nyland remembers an usher running into the room, yelling, "They're going after Lemieux." He barely tied his skates before charging out. Dave Brown, Philly's heavyweight, was waiting. Mark Howe recalled, "Brown wasn't interested in anyone else, only Nyland." Nyland explains, "Brownie came out, no jersey, elbow pads only. He was their guy, I was ours. We went at it, rested, went at it again. At one point he asked, 'Had enough?' I said nope and threw another punch." Flyers defenseman Doug Crossman was even caught up in flip-flops. Writers watching from the press box compared it to a scene from Slapshot. Fights spread everywhere. Shane Corson, Larry Robinson, Don Knockbauer, all tangled up. Robinson, one of the game's classiest players, got dragged into swinging simply because of his size. Knockbauer ended up pinned under a pile, staring at skate blades inches from his hands. "I thought I was going to get my fingers cut off," he admitted. And through it all, no referees, no linesmen, nobody to break it up. just mayhem. Even the broadcasters couldn't believe what they were witnessing. ESPN had a live feed, but refused to cut away from SportsCenter. Bill Clement remembers, "I thought it was like a train wreck. Who couldn't look away?" Meanwhile, in the Flyers' room, the totally sane and non-confrontational Ron Hextall was losing his mind. He begged coach Mike Keenan to let him join the fray. Keenan locked the door. "You're not going." He told him, "If you fight and break a hand, we're finished." Hextall fumed as fans screamed on the other side of the wall. This would go on for 10, maybe 12 straight minutes. When the dust finally settled, what remained was pure mayhem. The game hadn't even started. As a result, no penalties were handed out before the puck dropped. No mass ejections, and I mean, what could the officials really do? This was a huge game, and handing out penalties or misconducts before it even started would have shortened both benches significantly. So, in a way, the teams both carried on as if nothing had just happened. Once play began, the game went on as planned, and aside from the usual rough and tumble 80s style, it stayed surprisingly tame. Montreal's little pregame superstition, it died that night. In the end, the Flyers got the last laugh, claiming victory and punching their ticket to the Stanley Cup final later that evening. The aftermath from this game may not have been as messy as you would have expected. This was a much different time after all. The only real punishment went to Eddie Hospodar, who was suspended for the Stanley Cup final for his role in the brawl. Montreal was fined, Philadelphia was fined, but as far as punishment went, Eddie was the only one who received a suspension. With the media backlash painting this game as proof that hockey was nothing more than a string of barbaric brawls straight out of Slapshot, the league knew something had to change. Just 4 months later, the NHL really cracked down, issuing harder suspensions, heavier fines, and introducing a new rule. Any player who left the bench to join a fight would face an automatic 1 to 10 game suspension. Multiplayer brawls have no place in the NHL, declared Blackhawks owner Bill Wirtz. The sport's reputation has taken a beating that night in Montreal. For Larry Robinson, it wasn't a fond memory either. Things happen for certain reasons, but it's not something I look back on fondly, he admitted. For others like Dave Brown, he claimed this marked a turning point in the game. That led to where we are now. The league knew they had to stop the brawls if they wanted to grow the game. And for fans, this game almost feels like a simulation, something too weird to be real. A night when both teams emptied their benches before the national anthem, all sparked by nothing more than a pre-game ritual. Unforgettable, unprecedented, and still the only brawl in NHL history where not a single penalty minute was handed out.